Very good evening, everyone, and we are delighted to have you all here. It's going to be an exciting session today filled with expert insights and knowledge. So keep your questions ready and we'll take them at the end. You can just type your questions in the chat box. Our team will pick it up and ask at the last. So I'm Divya, working as the community specialist at Uplers, and let's welcome our guest for the evening, Scott Sovine. With over 30 plus years of experience in tech, he's currently working as a senior staff technical program manager at Databricks. So welcome to the session, Scott.
Thanks, Divya. Really appreciate it.
Great. So before we start with the agenda, for the people who have joined the session for the first time, I would like to introduce you guys to our series of sessions. At Uplers, our mission is to make hiring and getting hired reliable, simple, and fast. We have had some amazing sessions around our remote revolution initiatives, wherein we invited speakers from top-notch companies like Twilio, GitLab, Atlassian, and many more. You can see it there. You can check these recordings on our YouTube channel, and we are starting with the sessions which are majorly focusing on how to land a good tech job at product-based companies. So, moving forward to the session agenda, Scott will take us through his journey. He'll share insights into his role. He'll talk about the unique culture at Databricks and experience working there. Following that, we'll discuss few pointers which will help you guys to upskill, and we'll be talking about the interview process and the open roles at Databricks. And of course, we have an amazing Q&A at the end, so keep your questions ready. So to begin with, I would request Scott to share his career journey, his role at Databricks.
Hi, folks. I'm Scott Sovine. I am currently a senior staff TPM, as Divya mentioned, at Databricks. I work in the Gen AI research org. And just to clarify, everything that I'm about to say is my personal experience. So I work at Databricks, but this is all from my own personal stuff. I've spent about 30 years in tech. I've always been interested in technology. I started as a C++ developer, building out video recording applications, and then rapidly moved into databases and did a bunch of commercial software. And then when my son was born, I switched over to TPM with Microsoft. And then from there, I've always been a TPM. I've built out PMOs and data management offices as well, including various lots of different areas. Big companies like Microsoft, Facebook, Meta, also Databricks, to startups like Mosaic ML, which is my most recent startup. And I've done a lot of interviews across all of those companies. So I'm hopeful to give you some knowledge and, if not, entertain you today. So we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. And it's very great that you are here to share your journey and your experiences and some tips and tricks for us. So, many of us struggle with job applications and landing the right roles. Given the current competitive job market in US and here in India also, the increasing demand for tech talent, what do you believe are the most crucial strategies and resources that candidates should focus on to effectively prepare for tech job interviews? And any tips you would like to share with the people who have joined this session?
So it is incredibly challenging right now to get an interview, mainly because you're going through multiple types of filters. So it used to be you just went to the recruiters and then the hiring managers. Now you have that AI layer in the front end and a lot of companies. So you really have to be very specific with your resume on how you're going to get in. So there's a couple of things that I fully recommend is one, if you really want the job, you should be targeting your resume for that job. So don't use a generic resume. Actually, build it out so that the keywords are hit, your experience is highlighted, and you are more likely to get that interview because that's what that resume is for. Once you have that, I would say interact with an AI. Everyone's got their favorites. My current favorite is Claude. Ask the AI to evaluate your resume. And you can literally have a question answer. I've done this multiple times to make sure that I'm still relevant, and find out what skill gaps you currently have. If you have skill gaps, I highly recommend doing free courses from Stanford or Harvard or something like that to get your skills up. They look awesome on your resume, but you have to complete them. And you really should have that as part of your education background. And then the last bit I would say is technology is the base. That is the minimal thing. So you have to be good at tech. What you're really going to show once you get into that interview process as your highlight is your soft skills. So practice your communication, be very confident, know your stuff, know your weaknesses. Don't exaggerate, because if somebody catches you in that, then you will likely not be hired. But if you're very truthful and say, hey, I never actually had to do that, but I'm interested, use the interviewer as somebody as your friend. They're not an adversary. They want to hire people. So if you're very much like in tune with them, you'll get the job. So, make sure you have your tech skills like polished up, but don't just study algorithms. Practice your interviewing skills. Interviewing is a skill. And the last thing I say is always start with the jobs you don't want. That's why you practice on that. If you get them, that's great. Now you have options. But if you really want a job, apply that for the end, practice your skills, because again, interviewing is a skill and not something that is innate for most of us. Okay.
Great. So I think we have few slides. So you want to talk about it in detail?
Yeah. So let me go through. So I'm a TPM, so I'm going to give you some aspects of how to manage your life a little bit, because that's what I do. Is I tell people what to do. First thing is always have a set of goals. So I actually do this when I'm interviewing. So I have been laid off twice in my past, and as soon as I get laid off, the first thing I do is I see my job hunt as my job. So I actually set up my goals, like when am I at target, how I'm going to up level my skills. I don't allow myself to even think about the fact that I don't have a job. I'm just like going right into the next thing. So as my world, my job is to get stuff done. I'm not a product manager. I don't think in infinite worlds. I think of I got 9 months to finish stuff and I'm going to finish it. So I push all my teams to get their stuff done. As part of that, I do a lot of interactions with my stakeholders. And this is something that if you're, working on a job, get used to interacting and really pushing your having strong opinions loosely held. So you really want to know what you're talking about, but actually take in the information and go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. A lot of that will go very far. And then the last thing is really know how to define an objective. This is the biggest concern I have with technical folks most of the time, is they are either too vague because they're scared that they can't make the objective, or they're too specific and then they sandbag. So that's what the TPN is meant to do, is like, okay, wait a minute, let's narrow this down, or let's widen this out because I want to challenge you and make sure that we get the best product for our customers. And then risks, just know your risks. And then once you know your risks, make sure you pre-sell everybody on how you're going to mitigate those risks and how you're going to deal with them, especially if you're an engineering manager. This is hugely important to like really know what your team is capable of and what their SLAs are. Don't overpromise there, because you're going to have some pretty nasty situations in tech, especially at big companies, and they understand that. But if you set that expectation correctly, you'll fly through your performance evaluations.
Great. I think we can move to the next slide.
Yeah. So for system thinking, this is part of every technical interview. What you're basically having to do is you have to clarify the purpose. So you have to tell that person that's cross-board what you're trying to do, and you have to be very clear, very specific, and concise. The more clarity you can provide in the least amount of words, the better off you are. You also want to understand your customer needs, do your research on the company and the products that you're trying to support or you're going after, and then how you would pivot when problems occur. Once you have that figured out, the next thing is you're going to map your dependencies. These dependencies are not only with external folks. Don't always assume you have full control. You don't. So make sure you map those dependencies. You have feedback loops set up and you understand where your failure points are. If you have a single person in any one spot that is critical to your project, you have a failure point, and that's a huge risk. So make sure that you identify that and then start cross-training folks. Um, the plan and prevent, that's effectively, you're going to map that through identifying it, cross-training, and documentation. A lot of people worry about job security in our tech world. If you do that, usually you're seen as adversarial. I would say don't worry about it. The more engaged you are, the more helpful you are, the more critical you are to the organization versus the job. So don't worry about job security. Worry about how you're going to make your job successful and everybody else around you successful. And then the last thing is with interview prep. I see a lot of people fail here. So when I did a lot of interviews, especially for Meta, I would ask, give me the most complex systems that you've ever designed. And they would tell me about a project that was fully contained within their team, had a stretch goal that was defined by a director. And what they did is they filled in the blanks. That is not a complex problem. A complex problem is you had to go find out what was going on. You had to negotiate, you had to set up your goals and figure out what your goals were, and then you solve them together. So always have that kind of project, even if it's a small one, even if it's like a community project, use that over your PowerPoint where you launched a feature in Word, for example. And then the last thing I would say there is scalability is what every big company is looking for. So every big company that I've ever worked for has archaic processes that they need to figure out how to turn into automated solutions. And figuring out how to do that correctly and clearly is what's going to propel you into your promotions and your next job. So if you find out where they're, look for the nastiest problem that nobody wants to tackle and go after it, because that's where you're going to have the most impact. So collaboration excellence. So again, I honestly think this is what makes folks different in tech. Everybody's technically brilliant, especially when you get that LLM behind you. You can ask all those really interesting questions. I honestly think Claude is better than a better program than I ever have been or will be. And I can always use it. And I use AI as a tool, not as a crutch. So having the ability to have those soft skills, I think is going to become even more important, because what you have the ability to do is align and simplify. So your job is to figure out what the problem is and then ask the right questions. If you can do that, then you can easily use all those tools that we currently have to fix it. The other thing is finding out who your subject matter experts. This is another failure point I see in a lot of companies. We always go for the directors and above. That really isn't your subject matter experts. They don't do a ton of the day-to-day work. If they have a great general knowledge, get the goal from them. But then you're going to work with that team. Find that, it could be that junior dev that just came out of college, but they have an incredible amount of knowledge. Go after them. Make sure that they are highlighted. Make sure that they have a good voice. A lot of times tech people are shy. And I actually coach a lot against that. It's like, you have an idea, you have an opinion, you're going to have to stand up. That's part of your job. And then that, again, communicating effectively. Drive. I always say you're driving, you're engaging, you're pushing your agenda, but you're doing it in a way that is better for the community and the company, not just for yourself. And then when you repeat your messaging, that's actually key, because you're always selling. And I don't care if you're a CPM, I don't care if you're a technical person, you always need to make sure that people understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and why you're doing it really well. Last thing is tech people are highly opinionated. You're going to have conflicts. Don't avoid them. Ask why. It's like I get told, I don't like the way you did the spreadsheet. It's too complex. I like details. A lot of people are visual learners. They want it as simple as possible. So there's always a bit of tension there. Instead of me getting upset or personally hurt, I'm going to go, why? What do you need? And then let's correct and work together. Because there's usually a midpoint. And then if you can't negotiate, if you have somebody that is, let's say they are a senior director in a company and they're like, I like it my way, then just you have two options. You either take that way or you find a new job, in my opinion. So I would say probably it's better just to adapt and learn. and accept. Okay, so in creating your impactful profile, so just to be super, super clear, your profile on LinkedIn, your resume, it has one job, and that job is to get you an interview, period. If it does that, you have an amazing profile. Don't change it. If it's not doing that, then you need to reflect and figure out why. So what I see, a great profile shows me the impact that you had at your previous company. It shows me what projects that you drove and led, and how you were impactful. So I want to see bullet points. I want to see metrics. And this is what I want to see. Some people want something different. I want to see how you drove across multiple teams, and how you define goals. And once I see that, then I know that person has confidence and can actually own what they're working for. Again, in AI, with these AI tools, you're not hitting a human first anymore. So you can't really use that generic resume and send it to like 150 positions and expect any response, because you're not hitting enough of the bar to get past the initial gateway. So you're going to have to do a little extra work. You're going to have to tailor that resume, and use the cover letter. It's an archaic concept, but it actually allows you to put in more detail, which allows you to put in more almost like keywords that the AI can summarize and figure out, oh, you are a fit, therefore I'm going to put you in. And then you hit that human screener. And then the human screener will see that you put in the effort, and it will also give you brownie points. Um, if you don't have the current fit for the job you're going after, this one's tough. This is where I say you have a couple of different options. Take courses, and make sure you finish them. Make sure you put that into your resume on what you learned and how you're going to apply it, because that'll help the LLM figure out how to, like, make you a fit for that job. And then the last bit that you really want to do there is, if you don't, if you are a dev, go after open source projects. These things are gold mines because you can develop your skills, you can provide in a community, and you can actually show off a lot of things. And if you look at like Databricks, if you look at like Snowflake, they actually mine those open source communities for these tech talents. So by all means, do that. And if you're open to it, if you have a long-term journey, you want to work at Databricks, you want to work at a Microsoft or something like that, but you don't currently have the pedigree to do that, find a startup that's in that space. Find that startup that's going to get bought out. That's how I got into Databricks. I don't think I would actually get into Databricks with my background, my education, but with my startup that I had with Mosaic, I proved my worth with job experience. So same thing with consulting. You can do that as well. Temporary jobs or temporary consulting packages are great for this, but just make sure you're picking it in the areas you want to be in. Don't just take everything. And then again, so your your LinkedIn should not read, this is what I did on a daily basis. Your LinkedIn should be, I was X, I manage Y, and I did Z. So unfortunately, my LinkedIn is not the best right now because I haven't been updating it as much as I should. But if you look at my older stuff, I always said like, hey, I managed a team of 10 people. I got 4 promoted in 2 cycles. As part of my management experience, I led complicated programs. I created a data management office from the ground up. I turned what the developers considered data exhaust into insightful insights that drove product decisions by 30% and increased revenue by 10%. That's a huge amount of impact. And it's a lot of detail in a very short amount of space. And that's what that human reviewer is going to look for. The AI, I don't know yet, but we'll see. Stay updated. Right now, things are going so fast. We went from effectively being able to code and functional to now using LLMs and agents to do our work for us. You need to know how to do that. You need to know how to take that agent and give it a specific prompt, take that prompt, summarize it, and leverage it. Play around with OpenAI, Anthropic, whatever. If you're really good, go up to Hugging Face and download the model and apply it. All that stuff is going to just help you. Um, and then the engaging in industry, you really need to, if you can, speaking engagements like this is great. Also, community meetups, attend them, speak up, engage. Networking in this world is more important now than it ever was previously, because that human level will get you past the AI. It'll get you right to that engineering manager. So the gatekeepers are really what I focus on now, is like, how do I get past the gatekeepers? Because once you get to that engineering manager, it really is all about connection, soft skills, and convincing. And that's something that I can do. I feel confident doing. So that's where I also tell you to lean in and up-level your skills.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all these informations. And I'm sure everyone is eager to put their these tips to work in their job search. So now we have insights into the key aspects of applying to various companies. It's evident there are multiple rounds and considerations to manage before pursuing a new role. So now let's discuss some other aspects. So this slides which talks about Databricks. So, when applying for a role, one of the first things we do in research is researching about the company, its mission, history, and values. So, doing your homework before an interview is a game changer. So, let's hear from you about Databricks as an organization and what makes it such an exciting place to work.
Databricks is incredible in a lot of ways. First of all, we are pioneering the data intelligence world. So, what Databricks is known for is the lakehouse. We have so much data that companies have trusted us with their data in these massive data warehouses that allow them to then leverage our other tools. To process that data into solutions. So we provide notebooks, we provide compute, and then in my world, we provide the fine tuning the LLM. So I'm all about like figuring out how to get GPUs to the right customers and using our researchers to develop new AI algorithms to make it easier for people to apply. So we really look for those folks that have they're innovators and they're builders at heart. I would actually say that Databricks has a lot of brilliant type A people that are constantly thinking about new solutions. We want, not only are we building, but we want to make sure that what we build works. So you're going to get a lot of critical feedback, and you got to be good with that because that's part of growing. And we're founder based. All of our founders are PhDs in Berkeley, Stanford. Ali Agadsi is our CEO. He's brilliant, and he knows market trends. We just had a huge funding round in that regard. So uh, with Databricks, in order to get seen, there's a couple different ways. One, you can have an awesome pedigree. We look for folks that have uh, high degrees of education, high degrees of accomplishment in industry. If you look at the people and the companies that Databricks has bought recently, we bought out Iceberg. We had Lilac. These tools are amazing, and then the last thing I would say is that with Databricks, it is tough to get in. So I highly recommend you do research the position you're actually going after, know that product inside and out, because Databricks has a ton of products and they interact differently. So you really have to know what that product is. Our documentation is really good. It's very detailed. Our founders write a lot of blog posts. I highly recommend that you read a lot of that before you go in, because we're a very proud company because, like I said, we're still founder based.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for introducing us to Databricks. Knowing a company's culture and values is like understanding the uh, organization a lot. So, we have the slides which talk about the culture. So, over to you, Scott.
Yeah, so Databricks, our first thing is we are customer obsessed. So we really want to make sure that the solutions that we provide match the customer need, and we want to make sure that customer is successful with our solutions. So if you've used Databricks, you know that our notebooks are easy to use. You can attach to different types of compute. Um, excuse me. Uh, we have Spark. We're famous for Spark. But we're also, a major leader in the AI space. So the team that I work for, we built our own massive LLM, mixture experts, DBRX. So we did all that with the customer in mind. We really want that customer to be successful. So that's always top priority. The other thing is that we're truth seeking. So we're constantly questioning if this is the right way to go. We have a lot of very highly educated, very insightful leaders that are going to ask, very poignant questions, and you got to be kind of ready for that. But mainly, it's around: is this still the right thing to do? So, um, first principles thinking, of course, is why. Why are you doing that? Like, what? Where are you seeing the value? Um, and really questioning again, not just the truth seeking, but the way to get there. Like, are we doing it simple? Are we making it the best way for our customers? And just making sure. We also put a company first mentality. So if we have a project that would be great for a certain community, but not so great for everybody, we're going to put the company first and look at, hey, maybe we won't focus our resources there. We have limited resources, so we want to make sure that we target the right thing. Of course, we always want to raise the bar. So everybody that comes in, we want to make sure that we're improving the the impact of Databricks for everybody. And the way that we do that is we have a bias for action. You're not going to just sit back and go, hey, I wonder what, I'm going to wait until somebody asks me to do something. I should be seeing you diving in and solving our situations as they come up.
Thanks for covering this slide. So, let's move to the next slide, which talks about the interview process. So, I know the people who have joined the session, might have questions around the interview process and things. So, over to you, Scott.
Yeah, so at Databricks, your recruiter is going to be your best resource. You really should be leveraging them. You should be asking them what to expect, who's on my loop, what will be covered, can you give me any hints? And then making sure that you are fully prepared. So each role has a different type of loop. Expect 3 to 5 interviews. For TPMs, for example, you're going to be talking about your experience with program management, how you did complicated projects. We're going to we're going to talk about scaling and systems and how you make sure that everybody understands what you're doing. You're going to probably have to do a presentation to a panel to make sure you can communicate well and clearly and confidently, that kind of thing. Inside of product management, you're going to have to know how to define mutually exclusive or MISI types principles. You're going to have to show that you can lead not only at a product level, but also engage with customers. You're engaging, you're warm, you're technically competent. Our product managers can code, and they code notebooks for our customers. So when you're in that interview process, you know, it's a really high, I would say it's one of the tougher interview processes. So don't be discouraged. Also, I would tell you that if you don't get the first one, that's okay. Keep going. It doesn't mean that you're not a fit for the company. It just means that you weren't a fit for that role. So go back, figure out why, reflect on what happened, learn from it, and then go after the next role. Because there's a ton of open positions right now. We are hiring.
Great. So thanks for just giving us an overview of this interview process. So moving on to the next slide. So here we have this job opportunity slide where we have two sections, which is active and passive ones. So active ones you can just see on the website, and passives are like they'll be opening up in near future. So over to you, Scott.
Yeah, so the active jobs are the ones that we're currently like. I work with these groups a lot. So customer success, we're really looking for folks that can find out where. Uh, what the issue is. Our products are not always perfect. So customer success finds out what's wrong. They help the customer succeed. It could be a technical gap. It could be that one of our compute resources went down. In the GPU world, we have a lot of nodes that fail. But they're the ones that are our bridge to making sure that our customers are good. Engineering and field engineering, these are two distinct. Engineering is what builds a product. They're the ones that, yeah, they're our coders and the ones that actually create the products that we sell. Field engineering, they're kind of like the pre-sales. So they're the ones that, ask the customer, hey, what are you trying to do? Oh, okay. Then they show how you can use Databricks in order to bridge the gap. They work very closely with our sales team. Some of the most brilliant folks that I deal with are in that field engineering group. And then, of course, we have everything that supports a company: finance, IT, legal, and then operations. I will spend a little bit on Mosaic AI. That is our Gen AI group. That's the team that I work with. So they're near and dear to my heart. So if you are somebody who is actively doing research in Gen AI, we are hiring for researchers in those roles. And we are looking for, if you're almost done with your PhD in Gen AI, we have internships that are open right now and actively hiring for that. I encourage you to put your resume in and take a shot. On the passive jobs, I actually, for these are jobs that we have a lot of community, actually. So I think I did this incorrectly. These are areas where you can help in Databricks and get experience with Databricks without having to, like fully go after the job. So this is something that I would say, like Databricks Labs, you can read through there. It would prepare you for how we actually, do Spark. We use Compute. We have a lot of open source projects there. We recently open source Unity Catalog. It's one of our best products. It's an amazing technology that we use across the board in our company. And then in Mosaic, we actually give you a bunch of cookbooks on how to use agents and how to use LLMs. So those are things that you can contribute to as an open source and get a lot of experience.
Awesome. So, with this, I guess we come to the end of this presentation. But now we are moving forward to the Q&A. I can see a lot of questions in the chat box already. So, let's start with the first question. Somebody has asked how to clear HR round. Can you give some tips or steps or tips to go through this round?
So the HR round, so I'm assuming you're talking about recruiting. There's a couple of things that I would actively, again, and I'm gonna repeat myself some stuff here. One, have a targeted resume and a cover letter, and detail out what you think. What you're first going to get through is that LLM, and then once you're in the HR aspect, what you really want to do is use that recruiter now. And you should ask a lot of questions. Again, they are there. They're your advocate at that point in time, and you should see them again as a friend. Um, and then a couple of things that I recommend. One, know the salaries if you can. So in California, there's a trick. You can look at salaries in California. It will tell you what the US is, and that will give you some information about where it's targeting. Make sure it's targeting where you want to be. And then also, once you have that, the basics down, like, it'll meet your needs. Now you want to make sure it satisfies your skills and what you're targeting there as well. So clearing the HR round really is more about follow up, using that recruiter, and then making sure that you have the right information. Unfortunately, there's no like magic formula that I can give you that'll get you through. Otherwise, I'd be a billionaire. Um, but I do think that being somewhat like, hey, asking the recruiter how to do it. Also, if you get a no, I would ask why. Sometimes you won't get any information, but it's always good to get the feedback. And it actually, when I have people that have failed an interview and they ask me why, and they're actually receptive to the feedback, it really gives me a good impression. So if they come back, I'm much more open to looking at a different role.
Great, thanks for answering that. So we have question, is there any opportunities via remote work as well, or it will be only on-site opportunities at Databricks?
We do have remote work that is open. It is becoming harder and harder. So for right now, I go in 5 days a week for my job, and we are looking more and more for RTO, return to office. So it is a little bit more difficult. However, we do have development centers in India as well as around the world. Um, this is a I think this is going to be a massive shift back. So most companies are landing in the middle where you have a few days in office and a few days out of office. If you really want that remote work, you're really going to have to sell that you are highly motivated. You have done this in the past. You've shown output. You're incredibly confident. You're very aggressive because fully remote is like doing a job on hard mode. Because you can't learn from osmosis, right? You got to actually go pinpoint. So if that's your goal, be very prepared for how, why, and what you're going to do to be super effective when nobody else can really see what you're doing.
Okay, so we have another question. Do companies in US read relevant resumes and call for interviews, or they'll use ATS to filter out?
So I'm not sure what ATS is. Is that the automatic?
It's
Yeah.
applicant tracking system.
Oh, okay, got it. Yes, we all use applicant tracking systems. As far as I've seen, Greenhouse is across the board. I've seen that across almost every company I worked with. We use Greenhouse. Mainly because when you get to these big companies, there are so many resumes that go for any job. I would expect Databricks for every job that we have open, at least I would say 10 to 30 would be the minimum. And it could have up to 400 or 500 resumes. So of course we're going to use an ATS to do that. However, it doesn't mean you should not be scared by that. You should see it as a challenge, and that's why I say if you're really going after that big company, you're going to have to be very aware of what that company does. You're going to have a targeted resume and making sure that you get past that first filter. The smaller the company, by the way, like as you get to closer to startups, they also use Greenhouse and they do some filtering, but because there's not enough candidates, it typically passes. So again, that's why I say start with startups. There's nothing wrong with a startup. It's a little bit riskier, and I get the fear, but if they stop paying you, go to another one. I mean, it's part of the game. But you will learn so much at a startup that a big company, because big companies are very role specific, whereas startups, you do everything. So I always recommend, going after all types of companies, not just targeting the big brands.
Great. So we have another question. What's one top skill that ensures success in a PM role? And what's one hard no-no that individuals should be careful about?
Okay, so in a product management role or even a program management role, the top skill is communication. That is by far the hardest thing that you will do is learning how to communicate clearly and concisely what your project does, because not only are you the CEO of that product, you are also the top salesperson for that role and that product. You should have your elevator pitch perfectly defined and ready to go because you're talking to customers, executives, engineers. The other thing is you need to learn how to communicate at different levels. Uh, an executive has approximately 30 seconds to hear what you're saying. If you can't do it in 30 seconds, you probably shouldn't be talking to them. An engineer, on the other hand, probably wants 2 hours with you. They want to know exactly why you think this is going to work. So make sure that you are equally okay on both sides. So that's the top thing that a PM should have that I look for. And the biggest no-no that on a PM and a program manager is not having the technical skills. I see some people try to fake it till they make it, which is fine if you're doing the research behind the scenes. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but you have to be incredibly dedicated to it. If you don't have the skills, don't be like, oh yeah, I got it. Instead say something like, hey, here's where I'm at. You're about 5 minutes. I'm about 5 minutes ahead of you. Here's what I'm doing in order to prove that. That way you can work together and you set that road up. PMs that say, I'll just do it. and give you a bad spec is horrible. Those meetings are just bad. So don't do that.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that. We have another questions, and I can see similar questions in the chat box. So, despite having experience, um, somebody has written this. Despite having experience, I am unable to clear interviews as I become anxious and nervous even after having 20 plus years of experience. Please share some tips for getting over it.
So I've actually been in this spot myself. So when I worked for Open Door, they cut the market, all the new market division. So I got laid off. Uh, this is what in that situation, a couple of things is probably happening. One, you're probably shotgunning your resume, and it's too generic to land the spot. Um, and then if you do get the interviews, once you're in the interviews, you have to project confidence. So again, this is where it may be that you're nervous and you're thinking that you have imposter syndrome, like, there's no way I can work here. You've already defeated yourself. Stop doing that. So think about how you're going to be effective in that role. This is where your research comes in, because that's what's going to give you your confidence. And this is what I would do is I would research what the role asks for. I would go to the LinkedIn to find out who's in my interview loop, to find out what they do. I would then use Google search to find out what they've done in their past, so that I can talk to their experience and show that I have understanding of what their role is. And then the last bit that I would do is, if I really wanted the spot, like when I was interviewing for Meta, I really wanted the spot. I literally wrote out every possible question that I could think of and answered it and practiced. And then I went back to my experience to make sure I understood every item inside of my resume. So when they would question, like, oh, you're a C++ guy, huh? Oh, okay, sure. Tell me what the STL is. Oh, standard template library. This is what it does. This is how I used it. Oh, memory management. Tell me what Alec does. I mean, they would try to catch me to basically say, you're just putting keywords. So I would make sure that I had that mapped and down pat on the technical side, because again, that's your bar. And then use that warm conversation and confidence to say, yes, I hear your question. Did I explain it correctly? I'm open to feedback. Um, and then the last thing is, if you are nervous, you're going to project like you're hiding something. So try not to be nervous. Or if you are nervous, be really upfront and say, listen, I really want this job. So I'm a little nervous. So I'm just going to tell you that right now, because I may talk too fast, or I may not be as clear as I want to be. I really appreciate if you'd help me by asking questions, and I will make sure to answer. Um, I will tell you that sometimes you will get jerks in your interview process that will be adversarial. If they are, is that someplace you want to work at? That's the first question I always ask.
Great. So we have another question which is around resume. So what is the best format for the resume, and does the resume format vary based on the location of multinational companies?
So the best format for the resume. So this one's tough for me. I try to look for the most popular resume formats that get past whatever ATS now, the applicant tracking systems. I honestly, if you're going to do this, take a look at what Greenhouse, because Greenhouse is so popular. Look at its best format and how it parses the docs. And if you can like maximize the maximum amount of information coming out of your resume that thing could then analyze, you're probably going to track pretty well. Um, so I don't have a best format. I would say that as you get more experience, having a little summary at top is probably good. And then being very, very clear and concise of what you drove. So again, don't describe, I was a C++ developer. Got that, because you're software developers. What did you do for impact? What project did you create? How did you solve problems? That kind of thing. So avoid the this is my job description, and say what you did in that job. That's super hard, and it's a talent and a skill. If you have access to professional resume writers, I have used those in the past. I've had mixed results, to be honest. They've been incredibly helpful, especially in my mid-career. They were like, okay, you did more than this, because I was too humble. at that time. I'm probably a little bit more on the arrogant side at this point, but they really make sure to summarize your resume in a way that's very comprehensive because you don't have the best critical viewpoint. You're either overcritical because you know everything about yourself, um, or you're not critical enough. So having friends review it, anything you can get feedback wise, human wise, I always encourage.
Great.
And then the multinational, yes, multinational companies have definitely different requirements. In the United States, you want to have your resume as short and concise as possible. That's not true in Europe, from what I understand. You can have longer resumes, and they want to see more um, how you are compliant and how you are doing the job that you've done. They value experience a lot. Um, those are the only two areas that I've really looked at. And then that third one, I do think that's what's the ideal length of the resume. Um, if you're less than 5 years, you should have one page. If you have more than one page, you need to be more concise. If you're between 5 and 15 years, you can have 2 pages, but they better be really super, super good. If you're over 20, you're going to have you really want to do that third, fourth, or fifth page. Don't keep it to that second page and figure out how to cut. I had literally cut a lot of my career off and my current LinkedIn because I'm trying to show that while I've had experience in this world, this is my focus now because you're really detailing your focus now, not everything you've ever done.
Great. So we have another question. What is advice would you give for someone returning from a career break of a year, now ready to get back in action?
This is something, okay, so there are certain companies out there in the world that actually look for this person specifically. At Meta, we had an entire program that was designed for people that had a 1 to 2 year gap or 3 year gap in their employment that are now coming back. A lot of the times it was family related or um, they are flipping to a new career or something like that. What we discovered is folks in these programs are highly motivated and they do really good work. So target the companies with those programs. Go find return to work type programs that really understand. Here's the thing. If you go for those programs, the level that you're going to get if you get hired is not going to be the level that you left at. And people get upset by that. So if you were a director, they may offer you a senior role. And you're like, wait, I was a director. I'm so much better than a senior. You got to let that go, because they're taking a risk on you, assuming that you have, you know, what have you done in all those 3 years that you've been gap? That's your gap, let's say. What have you done? Have you maintained your skills? Why can't you show that? Because if you could show that, you'd have it on your resume. So there's a risk there. So know that you're probably going to have to step down to leap forward. I used to be a mentor in the Meta program. I loved it because people that would take that program, yeah, they'd be upset that they had to take a level 4 when they thought they were a level 6. But like one person that I know that did that, she's a director now. She's a level 7, and it only took her 6 years. That's incredibly fast. Um, so definitely look for big companies with these return. The next thing I would say is target to get back into the flow of things, go for contract work. Take the 90-day, 180-day contract work, and get back into the groove because having that kind of break, you've lost some muscle memory when it comes to working. You need to get it back. So that's the one thing. That's what, like the Meta program, we actually built that in. It's like, hey, we had understanding. Hey, we know you're not used to getting things done in a certain order. You're used to having longer timelines. You're not used to having the pressure. The anxiety goes way up. All that stuff is built in. And then the last thing I would say, which is really important, is when you do get a job and you've been out for a while, make sure you have a support network because you're going to go through a lot of anxiety as you ramp up because you're going to have fear like, am I still as good as I used to be? So just make sure you have that. Everybody that I mentored at Meta that had that is successful. The folks that were like, I got it, most of them didn't get offers because they couldn't handle the stress.
Great. So we have another question. For Gen AI role, which projects you would like to see in a resume for shortlisting?
For Gen AI, okay, this is incredibly, this is hard because it's moving so fast right now. So the current hot thing is agents. You've got to know how agentic AI works. So it used to be last year at this time, we were all building big models, LLMs. Pre-training is effectively done. The only companies that are doing it are Meta, OpenAI, Anthropic. Post-training now is huge. So this is the reinforcement learning application. So understanding what that means, what fine-tuning is, continuous fine-tuning, understanding how human feedback works. Those are the kind of things that we're going to look for. Um, if you're going after an engineering job, you're going to have to know how to build agents. You're going LangChain, DSPOI. There's a couple of things you're going to have to figure out. Uh, and then the last bit is if you really want a research role and you don't have a PhD, it's going to be super tough because everybody right now is going after these roles and it's highly competitive. So if you really want to do it and you have the time and you can survive on whatever you're currently surviving on, go after the PhD. So, and then I would say if you're going to do projects, a couple of things you can shortlist. How you use LangChain's DSPY, and then I would like to see you in some of the open source, like Hugging Face. You know, have you downloaded a model? Have you installed it? And have you used it? How do you handle tasks from different stakeholders having the same priority at the same time? That one?
Yes, yes, you can pick it up.
Okay. So, okay, if stakeholders can be ranked. So if I have stakeholders like CEO, of course, trumps, but if you have two directors that have the exact same level in the organization, the same priority, at this point in time, this is what I always do is I just grab them both, put them into a room, and then we just hash it out. Because I'm like, okay, we have this resource, it can do A or it can do B. How are we going to do it? And then that's like I said, I'm just going to go dive into the conflict because there's no real easy way. If I try to say appease both sides, usually I fail on both. So I'd rather be successful and say, hey, you know, we have to figure out which way we're going to go. I'm actually in that world right now. I'm constantly going, yeah, we can't do that. I need those two devs over here. So that's what we're going to do. And then I need to put your project on hold. I get that's going to cause a delay. I will be happy to communicate that to senior management in order to make it successful.
Okay, so there is one question for the freshers. So, as a fresher, non-IT background, how can we get shortlisted and showcase the skills related to the job roles as equal to it background candidates?
So this is where I highly recommend leveraging any tool that you can to get your resume as targeted as possible. You're going to have to highlight your education. You're going to have to highlight how your previous experience makes it a good fit. You know, you're going to have to think outside the box because you don't have the traditional path. And this, again, this is where I say don't target the big companies, go after the smaller ones, develop that skill set because they're going to take a risk more so than a big company will.
Okay, so I think we can pick the last question for today. And as you have good years of experience, and this question is again a good one, what's your top trick to stay motivated, especially now that the industry is changing so fast and demanding?
That's a great question. Honestly, I try to trick myself into being like I was when I was in my 20s and always interested in everything. Um, it is fascinating to me how fast we're moving. So I am very fascinated by the technical industry and what we're doing and how things are changing. Because it seems like every 20 years we speed up. So now, like I assumed that Gen AI wouldn't be a thing until 2026. and it was a thing in 2024, and it's just getting faster. So embrace that. And to be honest, I would think that in about 2 years, I want to try something different. Just because I'm at that point in time where I've done this for a long time, I want to try psychology or law or something else to keep that my brain active. I always want to be learning. If you're not learning and you're not, and I tell my mentees this, if you're not somebody who loves to learn, tech probably isn't for you because it moves so fast and you are constantly in sites. Like I am on archive all the time. I'm constantly on YouTube trying to figure out like what is this new technique? What is soft? What is synthetic data generation? How does it work? What is agents? Why are we going from huge models down to little tiny models, back to huge models? How do I stitch that together? What is DSPY? So I'm constantly reading. If that's not something you find fun, it's probably not a great industry for you. Or go for a support role because a lot of the support roles will be more fixed.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering this. With this, we can end this session here. And it was really, really great interacting with you. And thank you. Thank you so much. You have been like truly inspiring for all of us. And we are so grateful to have you here with us.
Thank you. It was great. I had a blast. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So for the people, your questions got unanswered. We are really sorry because we are running out of time. So I think we have few next steps for you. You can register on Uplers and you can get the access of our Discord community and our WhatsApp group as well. You can join it. We are anticipating to host more sessions for you guys. And for the questions you have, you can join our Discord community. We'll definitely share the community link with Scott as well. So thank you so much. You guys will get the recording and everything. Thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Bye.